I'm Noel. I'm the editor of enduro.media, and welcome to episode 2 of the Enduro Bureau podcast. Yay. I'm here with my co-host, Jared Stock, Courtney Schmalley. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening.
Interesting fact, Courtney just got back from kicking someone in the face.
Well, it was a few kicks to my face, too, so...
And it wasn't me.
It wasn't courtship. No.
No.
Very good. Excellent. So we're just going to get ripping here this time out. We've got a really cool guest, and I'm excited to have her on. She is a bit of a Canadian moto and enduro legend. I think it's fair to say. Calgary local, former Team Canada ISDE member, former endurocross champion, X Games participant, Canadian moto champion of various things, I'm sure. I kind of don't have it all in front of me right now. Jared, do you want to do the actual introduction?
I think that pretty much covered it. Just an all-around great athlete in motocross and enduro, and someone to look up to for lots of females and males coming into the sport. So we're excited to have Lexi Pechout on the show.
Yes, I second that.
Thanks so much, you guys. What an intro.
Welcome. You are a legit badass.
Oh,
That's
you
what I
guys are
meant
too
to
good.
say. That's the words I was looking for.
Legit badass.
I just like to ride bikes.
Yeah,
Does
well,
that
you've
make
been
me a legit badass?
no.
Ha!
You've got further to go, man. Come on. I'm not going to give you that easy.
It's all right. I'll work harder.
Yeah, do better. Well, hey, welcome, Lexi. It's really good to have you on, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you here.
Thanks so much for having me. This is great. I love that we have another platform for podcasts, and I'm excited to see the guests that you guys have on in the future and the topics you guys discuss too.
Well, just speaking of podcasts, let's quickly pause to pitch your cast. Why don't you tell us about what you got going on?
So this fall, me and my two best friends, Jessica Longname and Danica White, decided to start a podcast. And we kind of just started it out of having some fun. And I mean, we're always going on adventures and having a good time riding bikes. And the two-wheeled community is so good. So we just thought we would use it as a platform to share some of our stories and hopefully inspire a few people along the way. And yeah, we just dropped our 10th episode here today, and we're still carrying on. So it's been a lot of fun, and I've been really enjoying it.
That's awesome, because you guys, like, when I see you around, you're definitely never having fun.
Oh, definitely not. Yeah. Ever.
No, never smiling, never laughing, never just having a hoot. So hey, I mean, I'm not even really joking at all when I say you're a legit badass. I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. When you dig into, the interwebs, I mean, you've been, I was reading a story earlier today that your dad put you on a bike when you were 2.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that started. I was basically born on 2 wheels. My dad moved here from Germany to ride bikes, and my parents met at a motorcycle event. They got engaged at a motorcycle event. Then it kind of all went downhill from there. So I started riding a PW50 when I was 2. And long story short, my parents had a motorcycle club that's still running to this day. They don't run it anymore, but it's called the Second Gear Club. And I basically went to every event they hosted from the time I was on a PW50 to current day. So it's been a lot of fun and given me a lot of opportunities to ride a lot of different disciplines. And I think a lot of that goes towards the rider that I am today, just being able to try different things.
I think that's something that we talk about a lot, is the importance of diversity in complete athletes, and especially in moto. And just, I think Jared's a good example of it. Courtney, and you're a great example of it. Rachel Goodish was on last week. She's a great example. But how riding a variety of disciplines just makes you fast. It doesn't hurt you in any other discipline. And I look at your speed on a motocross track versus your speed on a trail or on a hard enduro course, and it's all fast.
Thanks so much. I think a lot of those skills, they transfer back and forth, and our sport keeps changing and developing, and I think a lot of those skills you need to have go back and forth. And what's better than to put knowledge in your toolbox and all those experiences that you have trying different races. So when you come up to something new, it doesn't feel like a big scary thing because you've put yourself in those situations before.
What do you think, Lexi, is the best transition, off-road to moto or moto to off-road? What's more advantageous?
Ooh, good question.
'Cause I remember back in the day when I was in Calgary and you were starting to race the pro nationals for the women's, and we had some jumping technique to learn on. That was our big focus.
I think I'm still learning how to jump. I shit my pants every time I come up to the face of a jump, to be honest with you. But we're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting more comfortable. You'd think I'd have it figured out by now, but definitely still a weak point for me. But I mean, from my experience, going from off road to moto was easier. The first time I raced the Moto Nationals, and even still, there's some obstacles that I don't make it over. But I think it's easier where, I mean, they always say like corner for dough and jump for show or whatever that stupid saying is, but your ground speed is so important. Being able to navigate the track, being able to get over the obstacles, whether it's a log or a jump, and and I think that is easier. Where when you go from moto to off road, there's a lot going on that you're not used to. I mean, the trees are tighter. There's different obstacles than what you might have ever seen before. So I think that transition is a lot easier going off road to moto for sure.
Interesting.
This is a good point. I think, in time for me to do a quick segue. Before you came on, I was saying to Jared and Courtney that I had a little quote that I thought was great. This goes back to an article from 2015, Lexi, that you were in.
Oh, geez.
And, the question was, what Canadian pro do you look up to and why? And your answer is this, and I'm going to just change it up here a little bit, but this one is hard. There's so many. I would say this person. Not only do they shred the moto track, but they also translate their motocross skills to off-road. And when they aren't racing, they're doing something to give back to the racing community, like lap scoring or giving riding tips to people at the track. Do you remember who you were talking about?
Probably Jared Stock.
Yeah. Yeah, you were.
Ooh.
A 2015 article.
So good. And you know what? I don't think that hasn't changed much. I mean, I think that stuff is so cool. It the motorcycle community goes so beyond just showing up and racing and coming home with a piece of plastic. It's who you are. It's the inspiring the people around you and encouraging those people to get out and ride and go try something new. And if racing is what is our common denominator that gets us out and gets us to an event, that's great. But what you do beyond that, it really makes a difference in the motorcycle community for sure. And I mean, Jared, I mean, look at him now. What'll be 8 years later, and he's putting on his own series, right? So that's super cool to see and doing an excellent job at it. And I'm just really excited to see how much that's going to grow too.
No,
I'm
for
impressed you can do that math. I couldn't do that math in my head.
It's probably wrong.
But you just have to say with confidence.
Is it wrong? No, probably.
I don't know. I won't question it. But 2015, what was going on in 2015? Trying to think, was that
Just before you started off road.
Oh yeah, I was off road in 2013. It's my first year.
I think
So
we were sorry.
No, I was just going to say, well, in 2014, you were the enduro cross champion.
Yeah, and I remember us training a bunch because we went to 6 days together in Italy.
Yeah, that's
and then
right.
I remember training at Blackfoot together. And then we did a bunch of kids and, like, I guess not just kids too, for everyone, riding schools.
That's
We were
right.
doing together for raising funds for, I think that started as raising funds for 6 days, but kind of just evolved into something that we loved.
Right. I totally forgot about that. That was some good stuff back then.
Right?
Yeah.
That feels like yesterday and forever ago at the same time.
I've had probably 2 solid concussions since then. So
checks out. This is moto.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. Wow. So, and I guess before we kind of get going in another direction, you brought up community and you've spoken about community already. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the community building that you're such a big part of here in Calgary with Surf and Berms?
I mean, all of that, I have to give hats off to Danica. She's the mastermind and the one that makes everything happen. I'm just along to help out and slap high fives and help where I can. But what she's done to create a place where people, I mean, women especially, is who it's geared towards. For people that don't know, Surf and Berms is well, it became a small business this year. It got registered as a small business, so no longer not for profit. But we try to have these community builder events once a month at the track. Actually, this month, because it's obviously the track is closed, we did one at Beeline, which is an indoor bike park. So we always just try to have events once a month to get people together. Typically, it's at the Wild Rose track here in Calgary. So we get to reserve one of the tracks just for women. So it's a very safe, very controlled environment where the track is groomed so that it's pretty much flat. So anyone can get on there no matter what size your bike is. We even have people that show up on 50s and even some dual sports, and people ride to the track, which is really cool, and everything in between. So just creating a place where like-minded women can come together, maybe try the track for the first time, maybe meet some new people to go riding with. And it's been really cool to see some of the friendships that have come from it. And worst case, you show up, you have some snacks, you slap some high fives, and you go home. So it's been a lot of fun to see. Our last one in September had just, I think, 80 girls that showed up to it. So it's pretty cool to see that there's that many women on bikes. I mean, when I was growing up, there definitely wasn't that much of a like there just wasn't that many women. It didn't seem like riding for sure, or I just didn't know where they were.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you kind of progressed from being at the club with your club events with your parents? And I mean, it's pretty easy to see how the transition to racing happened, but tell us a little bit more about that and how you sort of moved to be both moto or motocross and off-road.
Yeah. So that's I guess the second gear club hosted races. Mainly their focus was off-road races, so hare scrambles and cross countries. My dad was always someone that just encouraged me to try things new all the time. As time went on and I got older, the club advanced too. So there was, at one point, I don't know, they had hare scrambles, cross countries, trials, ice racing. Basically, you name it on two wheels, they probably were involved in some way. So it was really cool to just try different stuff like that. Um, as I became older, I just had more interest in it, and it was pretty much the only thing I wanted to do. I mean, I'm not coordinated even still to this day to do anything off of two wheels. So basketball, volleyball, all those team sports just didn't work out for me. And I kind of always just felt like an outlier. So for me, my my family and my friends that felt like family were all involved riding two wheels, and all I wanted to do was go camping on the weekend and race bikes. So not much has changed from then till now. I still feel about the same way. But I just always love challenging myself. I think that's what I do love a lot about this sport, is that you're never you can never settle. There's always something new to learn, someone new to ride with, somewhere new to ride. And I think that's kind of where a lot of that transition happened. After I went to 6 days in Italy, I realized how important like ground speed was, and a lot of the tests there were like big grass track. And even now, I mean, Jared and Courtney can probably speak to this more. You guys have been there more recently, but it's almost like it's going to more of like a GNCC, more moto. Your moto skills are just as important as your off-road skills. When I first went to 6 days not knowing, I was like, oh, we're going to be riding like 200 kilometers a day of just single track. And that wasn't so much the case when we went. So I think, again, just coming back, being a very diverse rider and riding different disciplines is so important. So when you go to an event like that where you're riding so much different terrain in such a short period of time, you need to be ready for what those obstacles are that you're going to come to. So I mean, even like we just talked about a little bit, back riding with Jared at the track, him riding more moto and being able to pick his brain on those kinds of things, and riding some off-road and going back and forth. And that's what's really cool too, is a lot of my upbringing has been from just sharing our skills and our knowledge with other people within the community, and being able to kind of feed off of each other. And you're in the parking lot one day and you're just chatting, and the next thing you know, oh hey, try this, and having those other people encourage you to give it a shot, even though, hey, there's lots of times where, I mean, I didn't get it on the first shot, but having someone there to encourage you to at least give it a shot is really cool. But yeah, so moto I took on a little bit more in the last, I guess 2016 was the first year. I raced the women's West Coast Nationals, and a lot of those skills go off road too. Being comfortable in the air. I mean, I say that I say that lightly, but it also changes your viewpoints on, hey, I'm coming up to a log, I'm going to jump this log, or I'm going to jump this section, or like, it's kind of hard to explain, but there's a lot of instances where your moto skills also translate off road, and can help you both ways.
Well, I guess especially in something like enduro cross, right? And with the ability, coming from the motocross track and being able to like double or triple stuff, that probably comes into play there.
Absolutely. And I think that's even changed too. Like, you watch from, I haven't been to an enduro cross in years, but just watching it on TV back when I was going in 2012 to 2015, kind of everyone was struggling and just kind of getting through it. And now it's like, it's damn near arena cross. Everyone's jumping the obstacles, and your wheels aren't even hitting the rocks that are in the middle, because you're just jumping the whole thing. So it's kind of interesting to see the sport change.
Yeah, it's so sandy now.
If my tires don't have to touch anything sharp and edgy,
it's best.
over that.
It's a lot cheaper to replace parts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You actually, Lexi, you went and did Super Enduro at least once, didn't you?
Yes, I went to Super Enduro 2015 in Germany.
What was that like?
Oh, yeah,
that was a really crazy experience. I mean, just traveling to any international race is always really cool. Moto is also sometimes a very loose program. So looking back, I mean, you're rolling into a foreign country. Thankfully, my dad spoke German, so that took out that barrier. But you're showing up on a bike where you've never ridden it before. You're literally showing up at the race, and the time you get riding on it is like the 5 laps of practice you get before the race. At that time too, like, just looking back from what we do now to what we did then, was just like, we're riding completely stock bikes, basically moving the levers and just hoping for the best. Now knowing how important like bike setup is and those kinds of things, I often wonder what that experience would have been like knowing that back then. But it was great. I mean, it's always really cool to just go race with different racers. I didn't do very well at that event, but we had a great time, and yeah, maybe one day we'll get back there.
What's your I guess we're going to talk about racing internationally coming up here in a little bit, but what is your favorite international event you've ever been to?
Oh man. I would probably have to say the Hidaka 2-day enduro, which I've been to. This was 4 times here in September. It's a 2-day enduro. It's the same format as 6 days, but it's only 2 days instead of 6, and it's in the northern island of Japan, which is Hokkaido, and it's just beautiful. The people are wonderful. Everything about the event and just the terrain there is unbelievable. So right now, I would probably have to say that's my favorite international event.
Right on.
How much Japanese have you picked up in the travels?
I was working really hard at it after the second time I went, and I actually did my opening ceremony speech in Japanese, and I'm sure I butchered it, which is fine. But we're getting there, and I actually have someone, a Japanese woman, living in my house right now with me. So maybe one day I'll have some more Japanese language skills, but right now it's not so good.
It's like you and Taylor Swift, like on stage talking in Japanese.
There we go. Yeah.
You're the Moto T Swift.
There we go.
That's the title.
Hey guys, Courtney here with SOR Enduro Racing. Get in on all the action at our SOR race events this season as we bring new opportunities for racers and businesses who are looking to expand in promoting their brands. Pit row packages are front row and in the action with quick, easy access to the starting gates. Ensure that your business and your sponsored racers have the necessary, well-organized, and professional setup where your brand will be in the eyes of all spectators and racers. Might you have your own personal, friends, or family race team? This can also be an opportunity for you. Limited spots are available, so contact us for more information and reserve your pit row spot today.
And now back to the show. Well, look, why don't we? I mean, since you're talking about that race, I mean, one of the things that was really interesting to me and that I've wanted to talk to you about, and you know this for a long time, is, you had a pretty crazy couple months last season in 2023 where you were, uh, you started off your season racing the Western swing of the Canadian Triple Crown Series and the WMX. And then you transitioned from that to enduro mode. And from August to September, you raced Jared and Courtney's sprint series. Then you went to Red Bull Outliers for a pretty insane hard enduro experience, or FIM hard enduro experience. Then you went to Japan. And then the weekend after Japan, you were back in Canada, in Ontario, for the Corduroy Enduro.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty epic sequence of events. And then on top of that, you did it with a destroyed knee.
Yeah, looking back, I'm probably not the smartest person, but life's too short not to do those things, and I'm always up for a good story. And anyways, so starting with Jared and Courtney's SOAR event, it was at the Raymond track. I didn't even fall off the bike. It was so dumb. There was like a little, I don't even know if you would call it a jump or a step up, or I don't know what it was, but basically I went off the lip and my foot came off the peg. And when I landed, my foot hit the ground and kind of like went back. And right there, I was like, oh no. And I tried to like get up off the bike and it just wasn't happening. So, ended up completely destroying my knee, but not really knowing at that time. And the Canadian healthcare system is wild, and just trying to get like results and answers and trying to figure out what was going on. It was like almost a month. It was almost a month. Yeah. No, I was, it's crazy. So I heard it. I went to the doctor. They would give me x-rays. By the time I went to go see a specialist, I paid for an MRI, and
Wow.
I was in Japan when I got the phone call with the diagnosis of my knee. So it was
So the
ridiculous.
Japan was about a month after that race, right?
Yes, yeah. So Jared and Courtney's race was, I think, the first weekend of August,
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
or maybe the
Yeah.
second weekend of August.
Raymond's, about second weekend of August.
All I remember, it was hot as
Yeah, it
balls.
was after
It was so
Walt.
hot.
I think it was after Walton Week, maybe.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah, I can't remember,
something like
but
that.
something like
But
that, or maybe the week before.
I was so bummed because I was having the best time ever at that race, and everything was just laid out so fun, and everything was just perfect. I was having a great time battling, and the
You
weather
were
was great. It was dusty.
you were flying that day. You were in. It was funny because I just did like a little like talking head thing before you started that test, saying that after, I think that was maybe the fourth test of the day or something, fourth or fifth test of the day,
Yeah.
and you were in third overall at that point.
Yeah, I was. And there was a lot of trash talk happening on the line. It was great.
Yeah. That's probably one of the best parts of the sprint series is the trash talk. And you know what? Lexi's involved in most of it. So it's a theme here.
I would have to
Yeah.
agree. It was
I
so
remember
good.
Alex, Mike Roberts did not like you beating his time.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Or
And then
Drew.
You, Gee, and Mike were
Yeah.
going at it.
with Lexi with your innocent face and
It's so funny. And then I saw Guy Giroux at the bike show like 2 weeks ago, and he's still giving me a hard time. So I love all that. This is so good, so good.
We'll have
So
to
yeah,
get him back out just so you can put another sliver in his hand for it.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, no, it
So,
was it was awesome.
so so you did your knee. I remember talking to you like in between tests, coming to see you, and you're kind of stretched out in the van. You were like, "Oh no, no, it's gonna be fine." And we'd been talking about Japan earlier that morning, and how it was like about a month out from then. And I was like, "Oh well, she doesn't look. You looked pretty calm and collected." And I was like, "Well, maybe it's okay." And she's just being cautious because same thing. Like I looked over and I saw you'd stopped, and through the long lens of my camera, I didn't see that you were like covered in dirt or anything like that. And I was like, "Oh, weird. Maybe a bike problem. Like I don't know, like what's going on." But as it turns out, yeah. So your knee was pretty torn up, but you say you found out in Japan, but in between Japan and that round of the Sprint Enduro series was this little, you know, just this little thing called Red Bull Outliers.
Yeah. So I was
No big
like,
deal.
I'm horrible because I guess I've been pretty lucky to not really have any major injuries in my life, and anyone who knows me knows I can't sit still. So for me to like be injured and be like on crutches, slowing down, can hardly walk was very difficult. And I was just like, oh, it's gonna be fine. I'm just gonna walk it off. It'll just shake out. It's just gonna be swollen for a couple days. I just tweaked it. It's gonna be fine. Turns out, I did do those things, but it was just a little bit more serious than I thought it was at first. So yeah, so I had all these plans. I've been involved with, um, like, always seem to somehow be involved in some kind of way with Red Bull Rocks and Longs before it was Red Bull Outliers, and now what is now Red Bull Outliers. And have built kind of a cool relationship with the team at Red Bull. So this year was going to be special because we had an activation. Danica and I lined up with Red Bull through Shane to teach a bunch of women how to ride bikes that had never ridden bikes or been on bikes before up at the track. And then we had some other stuff planned for the event. And then obviously Red Bull Outliers, no one wants to miss that. It's such a cool event. The year before I got third in the amateur class and really just wanted to kind of come back and fight for that again. And just ride in a location that we don't get to ride ever, right? Both downtown and in the Badlands. It's nothing like anywhere else to ride.
Just to clarify, when you say you were third in amateur, you weren't third in women's amateur. You were third in amateur overall.
Yeah, you betcha. Yeah. They didn't have a
Hell
women's
yeah.
class.
Hell
They
yeah.
still don't have a women's class, but yeah, it was great. So yeah, I really wanted to be a part of that. And once I had my knee in a knee brace, honestly, it felt pretty good. It's just those movements where you're not expecting it, right? Like when you're walking down the stairs, you kind of know what that movement is going to be. But when you're riding and your bike just kicks the wrong way, or I mean, the first day riding downtown, that was
Yeah.
probably the hardest race I've ever done in my life.
No
Um,
doubt. So I'm just going to jump in and say, like, watching you on that day, knowing like the pain you were in, and I, had a little sidebar conversation with your mom, who is your biggest champion, and she's amazing. But watching you ride that course, and especially the tire alley, like, if people haven't watched any of the playback of Red Bull Outliers in the prologue day in downtown Calgary, it's amazing. That tire alley took out some of the best riders in the world. Like Billy Bolt went down in there. I know Tristan went down in there, multiple times. And knowing how your knee was doing and then seeing you come off and having to plant it into the tires was just like, I was cringing every time.
yeah, it was definitely not, it was not good. So basically what they had was like concrete jersey barriers, and then they'd have like a row of tires in front of it, and then another barrier, and then another row of tires. So as soon as you lost your momentum, it was really hard to get going again. And sometimes they would just come up. You either hit the jersey or barrier the wrong with the bike, or you lose a little bit of momentum and you fall into the hole of the tire. And yeah, the one time I just stopped myself dead and kind of like fell off the bike, but didn't fall myself. I like ran it out, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And my knee just was not ready for that movement. I could barely walk, let alone run. So just that movement was not good. And then I had a couple other falls where there was like a wall and I fell down the wall. Just there was just carnage everywhere. I felt like I was on the ground more than I was riding. But I really wanted to get myself into a position where I could start. Because that's the whole point of the first day, is to get a good start for day 2. And that's all I wanted. I just wanted to make it to the main event at the end of the day. I didn't care if I got last when I got there. I just wanted to make sure I had a first row start for day 2. And that's what I made happen. But yeah, I was in a lot of pain, and probably looking back should not have done that and just rode day 2 wherever I ended up. But yeah, we made it happen. There were some tears, but we made it happen.
I mean, incredible. And then to come back after taking that beating and to head out into the Badlands. And again, Badlands is hardcore. You know, it's hard to describe to people who haven't been there, like, you know, the features that Shane Cuthbertson, the race director from Calgary here, who puts into the course are steep, they're rugged, and the dirt out there is not the grippiest.
Yeah, I mean, it's the terrain is not what the problem is. I mean, there are some unbelievable lines that get put up there, but the hard people is the problem, right? So for the amateur races, you're racing with the vet class and with the amateur class. So I think there was like, I'm probably wrong, but not far off, like around 300 riders that were on the course at the same time. The start ended up getting a little bit messed up, and everyone ended up going like essentially within like 20 seconds of each other. So when you're that many riders into a single track, into a bunch of gnarly hill climbs, bottlenecks form. People also get in this like race brain where you see nothing but like you have to be moving, you have to be going. And sometimes you forget about everything else that's around you. So there was a lot of carnage that happened. There was a lot of bikes getting thrown around. There was a lot of like, everyone just wanted to make it to the top of the hill, and people were ghosting their bikes and not helping each other. And we sat at the bottom of the hill for a really long time. So that was unfortunate. But when you're walking around, even like the day before, checking out all the lines and everything, you're like, man, I don't even think I can walk up some of this stuff. And these guys are getting up out on their bikes. So it's incredibly impressive. And I mean, you see it on TV, but I mean, video never does justice until you're like actually standing there seeing what these riders are going up.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah. It's when people ask why I don't race the hard enduro, or particularly the outliers, it's like 45 minutes from my house. And my first answer used to be Jersey barrier. That's my first reason. And then I watched the event, and now my reason is ghost bikes. That would be the second reason. I've seen some crazy ghost riding action going on, and I was like, well, I don't think I want to be the recipient of one of those.
Totally. And you know, and I was just thankful like this year there was no rain or anything
Oh,
like that. Like the train there is so, I don't even know how to explain it. Like there you have really, like for the most part you have really good traction when it's dry, but as soon as moisture
mm.
gets into that dirt, you can't even walk.
No,
Yeah.
it's exactly like it's slicker than snot. It really is when it's wet. And it's like you say, like, you just can't describe, like you literally can't walk.
It's like goose poo.
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Can't
It's
step
like
on that.
poo.
Yeah.
So you know, you got through the day, obviously. Again, like I witnessed you, you know, at the top of some steep stuff, working the bike and working that leg really hard. How did you feel at the end?
You know what? I felt terrible. Like physically felt terrible.
Yeah.
Ice bath was definitely my friend after that, but it was more for me kind of changing my outlook on why I did it. And for me, it was like proving to myself that I could do hard things, just pushing through that pain, not quitting on myself. Like at any point in time, I could have just been like, oh, this is dumb and stopped. But I wanted to finish and push myself to finish regardless of if I got dead last or not. And the feedback that I got from a lot of people, people that I knew and people that I didn't know from day one being downtown, it's just like, it's kind of silly as it is, but just kind of showing up for myself and just proving to other people that they can do it too. And hopefully maybe inspiring some other women to show up in years to come. There's a lot of new racers that are there. Maybe they won't show up next year, but the women in sport is growing, and I think there's a lot of racers locally that can do it. And sometimes you just need a little bit of a push to go. So hopefully we see some more women racers in the future, and Outliers can continue to grow.
That was a gutsy damn ride that day. I will say that.
Yeah, there was a few moments where I remember looking at Kale in the stands and just shaking my head like, I'm done. And he points his finger and he's like, go. Exactly. Yeah. I should have.
So explain what Kale does.
Kale is he's a all around badass when it comes to working on motorcycles.
Yep.
But yeah, he's a motorcycle mechanic. Right now he's working for direct suspension and specializing in the suspension side of things. But a lot of his past is from working on race teams, just as race day mechanic.
So you come out of Outliers, your knee is probably a little swollen. And how long did you have between Outliers and Japan? You had a few weeks, right?
Outliers I think was the last weekend of August.
Oh, yeah.
Last weekend of August, I left like September 5th for Japan. And I had like a week in Japan. So probably like 2 weeks in between, 2.5 weeks in between, roughly.
Were you,
Outliers in the Japan race.
just listening to you talk, I'm going to guess, I'm pretty sure I know what the answer to this is, but at any point were you thinking that maybe Japan wasn't going to happen?
Yeah, so for me, because I've never had a knee injury and I've never really had too big of injuries, and this was literally this was the conversation I had 2 days before Outliers, because I didn't know at this point what was actually wrong with my knee. I just knew it really hurt and it was really swollen and it wasn't good. Um, and I just didn't want to do any further damage. So just talking to talking to the doctors and just kind of coming up with a plan to make sure I was okay to do that. They basically put it on me. By the time I had finished Outliers, I was super swollen, super sore, but I was able to walk on it. Not well, like I couldn't get my leg to be fully straight. Um, but again, like you only have these opportunities every now and again to go to events like Outliers, and all my stuff was already booked for Japan. So I was like, whatever, we're just gonna go. If it ends up me just going for a ride and enjoying the people and visiting a beautiful country and all the people that I met from before, then that's what I'll do. And ended up taping it, putting it in a brace and everything. It feels better. It feels better on a brace riding than it does walking down the stairs, to be honest. So, it was
Crazy.
it was kind of a one of those decisions where you're like, I don't know if there's a perfect answer, but I'm really glad at the end of the day that we went.
Sorry, Courtney, did you want to jump
I
in
was
or?
just gonna ask, what did you end up finding out what happened to your knee, or have you had to seek any further recovery options for that?
Yeah. So, full ACL tear, partial
Oh,
partial MCL, PCL, LCL, and meniscus. Um,
oh,
so
Uh,
I've done that and I feel for you.
yeah, good times, good times. So, and
Oh my god.
I couldn't believe like, and it's hard, right? Because we're all racers and we all talk amongst each other, and no knee injury or no injury in general is ever the same, right? So you're talking to different people and they're like, oh, this worked. Oh, this worked. Oh, you don't need an ACL to ride. Oh, like, you know what I mean? And everyone's pain
Yeah.
tolerances are different. And it was hard to get some feedback from some people and trying to explain what was going on and how I was feeling. But at the end of the day, I just had to do like what felt good for me. So
Yep.
since then, I've been doing like a ton of stuff and really just learning a lot about my body and recovery and even just like warming up and all those things too. And just trying things that work. I mean, we're in a male dominated sport, and pretty much everyone I talked to was a man, and that has had previous knee injuries. And talking to other females, other things work for women that just because of our like genetics and the way our bodies are. So still learning, still working on recovering from it. I'm feeling so much better now. It took me till the first week of January to get a consult with a surgeon, because they basically said my only option is surgery. Um, so I had that conversation after talking to the doctor and doing a few things. I've made the decision to push surgery until the fall, so I don't have to write off all this season. And I only did that because of how good I'm currently feeling. And I'm just taking everything day by day, and it seems to be improving a little bit and a little bit. And um, you always like, when you go to when you go to the doctor and they're like, okay, you really have to do this and you have to do that and you have to make sure you're doing all of these things. And you're like, man, this is really overwhelming. And you do it for a week and then you stop. It's
Yeah.
really important to do it every single day, and it
Yeah.
actually does make a difference. So I'm feeling really good right now, and I'm actually really looking forward to the season.
That's awesome.
So with Japan, how did this come about that you started going to this race?
Long story short, the motorcycle industry is really, really small.
Yeah.
I wrote a article for a magazine back in 2017. Um, and the owner of the magazine had reached out to a fellow rider, that kind of put us in contact. And he invited us over to go for an event. And I was like, man, this is the one in a lifetime kind of thing to go to Japan. It was never really a place where I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to Japan. To me, in my head, I was like, can they even ride bikes there? Like, I know they all come from there, but where are you riding, right?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, after the first time there, it quickly became my second family. Just the people there are so wonderful and basically have invited me back every year since. COVID kind of threw a wrench in it for a couple years. But it was really cool after being able to participate in the first event since COVID because they shut everything down. Everyone was just more excited than they were before, and people in Japan love motorcycles and they love having people come to their events. So yeah, it's been really, really cool to have them welcome me back and continue to go.
That's amazing. So tell us a little bit about the event.
So yeah, it's 2 day enduro, so same format as 6 days. The
Yep.
duration is a little bit shorter. I think we did about 100 and I think it was 180 kilometers both days, which I think 6 days is longer. I could be wrong. Probably varies.
Probably about this close to the same, hey?
It's like I never keep track, but it's probably closer to 200 a day
Hmm.
or one a day. Yeah.
And it's really cool. The terrain there is like the only way I can really explain it is kind of like in the jungle. I posted a photo while I was there, and I'm holding a leaf, and the leaf is nearly the size of what I am. So you're riding through like bamboo. It seems like there's just different rules in here. I mean, it seems that riding here has become so strict, but being able to like ride down the middle of a creek, and the Japanese just put 100% effort into everything that they do. So even when you pull up to Park Ferme, like the banners they have are like they have rulers and measuring tapes out, and every stake is perfectly the same height and distance apart. Like it's beautiful to look at, and it just really makes you appreciate how much time and effort they put into it. Um, the club that puts on that event is very tight knit and all really good friends, and they invite us over after the race every year to have like a barbecue essentially with them. And it's just really special to kind of hear how long they work on it and all the planning and everything that goes into it, which is obvious, but it's just the the way everything is set up and how well it's organized is second to none. No one's getting lost. The banners are all the same. The markings are all the same. You never have to worry about where you're going. There's like pinpoint locations to all the special tests, and you scan a QR code. So, I mean, you're let me paint a picture. You're in a foreign country where you can hardly read the road signs, let
Yeah.
alone speak the language or anything even close to it. And neither myself or Kale, when he came with me this year, who's never been to Japan before, never had an issue getting anywhere or figuring anything out. I mean, I couldn't even listen to the riders briefing or the riders meeting before the event because obviously it's not in English, and I was able to figure it out. So it's just really
Amazing.
cool to go an event like that.
And what's it like in the event, like compared to a race here?
So this year, like as far as like the racers and stuff go,
Yeah.
so this year I raced in the international A class, which would be equivalent to the like I don't know what that is in 6 days, but like their pro class essentially. Um, I just wanted to have a little bit more of a challenge. In previous years, I raced in the women's class, and then I raced in their like intermediate class, and then this year, I wanted to race in the pro class. Gemma Wilson is also a like unbelievable rider. She's from Australia. She actually last time we raced together was when we went to 6 days in 2013, and
Wow.
she's got many championships and I don't even know how many 6 days she's participated in, but she's unbelievable. So she was there racing too, and I wanted to race with her. And we had the best time. We were on the same minute, so we got to basically spend the entire weekend together, just riding and racing together. So it's really cool. The dynamic is a lot different too. I love the enduro format because you're going all out and you're racing and you're super competitive for these short bursts, but you're also have time in between in your transfer sections to really just like enjoy riding and enjoy the scenery and take it all in, as silly as it sounds. But racing's, like I said before, it's more than just taking a piece of plastic home at the end of the day for me, anyways. So you stop and you come in early to these checkpoints, and I've never seen this anywhere else, but you come into a stop point, you're waiting for your minute, and we were really early. They had a lot of rain leading up to it, so they were riding on the B times, which meant we had a lot of time when we got to these checkpoints because they didn't want anyone to be late. So we'd show up, they'd have lunches ready, and we're sitting in our van and we're filling up our camelbacks and we're hanging out, getting ready for the next section. And there's these Japanese people with like trays of food and tea and water and anything you could ever need, walking around to every single like pit and vehicle, just making sure everyone had food and everything that they needed. And all the pro racers are under each other's tents, sitting there. I have a video, and they're all like playing with rocks together. I know that sounds so weird, but they were like stacking them on top of each other. It was so weird. I had no idea what was happening, but we were laughing about it. But it's just
Did you
cool.
stack some rocks?
No, we just laughed at them.
Okay.
But it's cool to be able to see that they can be serious racers and they're fighting for seconds at the end of the day. But they can also just like stop and have a good time and shoot the shit and share snacks, and that part's really cool.
So yeah, I mean that's amazing. And so I mean obviously it's travel. I mean it's probably at least I'm trying to remember when I went to Japan, and I went to Tokyo, not even Hokkaido. So what is it? Probably like 16 to 20 hours of travel to get there.
Yeah, it was a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you finish up, I presumably on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And then your next race is the following weekend in Ontario, Canada.
Yes. So we flew out Monday. I think we flew out Monday. We landed Tuesday. No, we flew out. I don't know. However, it works with the time difference. You like gain a day but lose a day, but it's the same day. I don't
Yeah, like you leave
know.
Monday morning and get in
Yeah.
Monday afternoon kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, we flew directly from Tokyo to Toronto. Um my boyfriend's family is based on in Ontario, so made it really easy. We got picked up from the airport. We had to be in like where the cord was for Thursday. So it was basically pick us up from the airport, go to the farm, load the bikes, and get to the cord. I had shipped my bike from Calgary to Toronto or to Ontario so that I could ride my own bike, and just logistically, um, it just made so much more sense. In previous years, I had a bike out there, and then you spend an entire afternoon changing parts and getting all that stuff ready, and nothing ever feels the same. So it all worked out good. I ended up selling that bike in Toronto or in Ontario.
Oh, perfect.
So I didn't even have to ship it back. So logistically, I had it dialed this year. Hopefully, we can do it again. But it really makes a difference riding your own bike. Just what you're used to, especially after just like not like just being gone for so long. Um, Being able to throw your leg on something that feels like home was one less thing I had to worry about while we were there. And then,
So,
yeah,
were you able to get over the jet lag?
yeah, thank God for coffee. I love coffee. The first couple days were a little rough, but um, yeah, shook it off pretty good.
Way to go. So yeah, so racing the cord. I mean, for those who don't know about the corduroy enduro, I don't know which one of you three wants to jump in and talk about this event.
I've never actually been to one yet, so
This year.
I was gonna go last year, but it didn't work out, obviously. But I'll let you guys take the lead on that.
Lexi, you've been more than I have, yeah.
Yeah. So Cord is similar format. It's the only one that I'm aware of, anyways, in Canada that's actual true enduro format or 6 days format. Which was like perfect to go to Japan first because it kind of got me ready and in the mindset of having a time card and being on a minute, make sure I'm not early, and you have a time period for working on your bikes. So there's all these other rules where it's not just like you're showing up to a hare scramble, you're pinning it for 2 hours and then you're done. You're on the bike for 6+ hours a day, and you're not full out 100% racing that whole time, but it's still a long time to be on a bike and be in gear and trying to stay on the gas for for a long period of time. So the court is always really fun. I really enjoy it because it's really good for all levels of racers, and they have a couple different routes. So depending on what class you're racing, you might be racing on a harder line than the other person on your minute, if that makes sense.
Uh, yeah, totally. So, what's your history with the cord? I mean, Jared, you were saying that Lexi's been there a little more.
I've been there, I think 4 or 5 times now. I think
I'm only
five.
Yeah.
two.
It's really cool. And you know what I love too is that there's always a trailer of, I mean, you guys got to drive the trailer this year. But that's bad.
Apparently, I don't have any friends.
That might be harder than the actual race. I don't know if I could drive across the country.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was lonely.
but it's cool to have how many people from the West Coast went out there this year? Do you know?
The
In our
17 bikes.
we crammed 17 bikes in that trailer,
That's
but
okay.
there was more, right? Because you would have been there. Who else was there? Not. I think actually we might have brought pretty much everybody out
Everyone from Alberta
besides you, Lexi.
and some BC peeps.
Because I can't make a decision quick enough.
I
My
wasn't
cord
gonna say anything.
my cord planning, I pretty much planned to go to the cord like 3 days before I flew out to Japan, which is why I had to ship my bike. Because I'm like, Jared, do you have room? And he's like, no, I've been full for weeks.
And
But
you know
Brutal.
what? I think at one point I had promised you that we would make it work, and then uh, I don't exactly remember how you ended up, but I'm glad we didn't because we could hardly fit like an extra toonie. That's the $2 coin for all the
For all our
non-Canadian listeners.
yeah.
Yeah, into
too
that
many.
trailer. It was sketchy.
So I guess incredibly, after all this damage to your knee and abusing it at some pretty substantial events, some big travel, you put yourself on top of the box at the corduroy.
Yeah, that one felt really good, I'm not gonna lie.
I bet.
It's just you don't really get a chance to ride with all of the women in Canada, or majority of them, I would say. And I
Yeah.
know we were missing a few this year, but it always seems like people are always split between weekends or not always racing the same series or whatever it might be. So it was really cool to kind of get everyone there. And then Rachel Gudish came up from the States. I hadn't
Yeah.
raced with her since we raced enduro cross like more than 10 years ago. So it was cool because we always like follow each other and always keep up on what everyone's doing. But me not really racing anything down in the States, I just never really knew where I was, kind of if I'm like way off their pace or if I'm close, or you kind of always wonder in a way.
Yeah.
And so to be able to race with her, and we both had struggles. I mean, she was struggling with some clutch stuff the first day, and I mean, it's racing. We were both. I couldn't keep it on two wheels for some of it too, but um, to be able to race with her and not be off the pace, that one felt pretty good for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a major event. Like, let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, it's really cool. It's really well done. The organizers are unbelievable. I mean, there's a reason why it's been around for I forget what year it was, 70 or something this year. Um, so it's really really great getting all the manufacturers involved. There's a ton of support behind it. Um, it's an event that everyone I think needs to attend and go check out, and it keeps evolving too, right? So now they have a race for kids, they have a race for vintage bikes, they've got e-bike races. So there's something for everyone to do that goes, and you just make a whole weekend of it, and it's a ton of fun.
Amazing. So, you were saying you sold your bike. I mean, that's a hell of a season you had, like going so hard on motocross at the beginning, making the switch to off-road, um, and enduro, especially with the injury. I mean, when you sold the bike, were you kind of like, was it a sort of sad glad situation?
No. I never loved selling bikes. I know we had such nice weather at home this whole time. I just
Yeah.
wanted to continue riding. I wasn't really like ready to stop.
Yeah.
And to add on to my adventures of this whole trip was I literally flew in from uh Toronto to Calgary. I
Yeah.
picked up my van at my mom's house with Kale. I went straight to Wild Rose because we had our final Surf and Berms event. Kale slept in the van and I rode all all evening at our event, and then we went home. So, and then went to work the next day.
Amazing.
So it's all part of it. I mean, I never love selling bikes at the end of the year because it means I usually have to stop riding for a little period of time, or just depends on the year and when that transitional period is. But the weather was so nice. We actually did get to get a little bit more riding, and I still had my moto bike here. I hadn't
Yeah.
sold it yet, so I wasn't really ready to be done when we got back.
Excellent. Have you got your bikes for 2024 yet?
Oh yeah, we're all ready. I definitely think I was born in the wrong country. I don't love the snow. I'm still trying to figure out how I can live in a place where I don't have to own a snow shovel, but we'll get there one day. But we put studs on this year, and I haven't been out a ton, but now that it seems to be the weather cooperating a little bit more, we'll get out some for sure.
So, Jared, you wanted to go off in a bit of a different tangent.
Yeah, tangent is a good word. Ranting, all the no, I just something that came to mind when we were kind of just discussing, what this evening's program was like was just kind of taking a lens of all the different events that you've been to in the past and in the just years before and all this stuff. And in our lens, we're always looking to improve our series in Alberta and in Canada. So, we have big ambitions, and you're not scared to just go for it with the series. So we wanted to kind of pick your brain on what sorts of things that you've seen in other countries or other races and series and promoters, and what you think we could bring to our nation here in our series that would elevate what we got going on.
Totally. I think that's like a really hard question in some ways. And just coming down to a lot of what is available, right? When you're
Yeah,
going to a lot of these races in internationally or wherever it might be, usually there's lots of funding that goes behind that. So your your expectations are a little bit higher, but there's also the like what is needed is there because they have that additional funding to make it happen. And
right,
there's a lot of clubs and organizations and races that I've been to, let's say locally, that just don't have those means. And I don't think sponsors or maybe even organizers that haven't raced internationally realize how important some of those things are. So
mm,
just like maybe, for example, like flagging, right? I feel like that's always one that everyone gets always fired up about. But when you're putting that much effort into racing, into the money into your bike, money into your travel, like all those things, so many of these racers are working 9 to 5 and whatever. Everyone's got different backgrounds, and that's kind of not really my point. But when you go to a race, you want to go and you want to finish and you want to put everything on the line and not have to worry about, hey, I got lost because of XYZ. So having really good flagging, I think, makes a big difference. But
right,
flagging is goddamn expensive. So
yeah,
some clubs or whatever it might be might not have the means to have good flagging or whatever that might be. But for example, your guys' race for the SOAR enduros have been unbelievable, right? Like we're so spoiled where the entire track is literally flagged. So you know what direction it's going to be, one color on one side and one on the other. And you know that when which one's right and which one's left. So you can plan when you're coming through a corner if it's going to be left or right if it's your first time through it, or you know you're not going to blow through a ribbon or miss an arrow or whatever that might be. So I think flagging is a really big one, but a big cost comes to that.
yeah,
I think racers want to know what's happening, and so do the people that are following them, whether it be their team or their friends at home or whoever it is. But on in race day as a racer, I think it's really important for your team and for yourself to know having live results. If you shouldn't have to wait and this is depending on the discipline, but you shouldn't have to wait hours or days or a week after to get the results on what's going on. Um,
right,
so to have that stuff, I mean, at the cord, we were able to log into live labs. Everything was transponder. Um, Kale was watching where I was on his phone. He knew where I was all the day. And I say this like there's always instances where technology doesn't work. It's just the nature of the beast. But for
yeah,
the most part, you can get yourself a general idea of where you are.
totally,
Um, and again, like logistics come into that too. Sometimes you're not in an area where there's service to make that happen. So, I mean, I'm not a techie guy. I don't know how all that stuff works, but um, that stuff makes a really big difference. And just, I think too, just having people that are super passionate and love what they do is so great. And we have such a tight knit group in Alberta specifically of people that are just volunteering their time. But a lot of people work really hard during the week. And at the end of the week, they're going to the races because that's what they love to do and that's their free time and they don't want to work anymore. So I think there's a lot of positions that should be paid, that aren't paid, that need to be paid so that one, you can hold people to a little bit of a higher expectation, but two, also just make sure that it's getting done well. But like I
right,
said before, obviously those things come with a cost, but having someone to kind of be the chief and point people in the right direction and deal with issues as they come. There's a lot of moving parts to putting on an event. And sometimes, as a racer, if you've never volunteered or you're looking from the outside, it's really easy to just kind of be, this didn't happen, this didn't happen. And you always get a few in the bunch. But
yeah,
until you volunteer, you never really understand what that looks like. Um, and I think people you would get more. I feel like we're always struggling to find volunteers, but man, just figure it out and get those people paid because they're putting in so much time and effort into it, and they so deserve to be there. And those events wouldn't happen without them. Having that good core group of people to put on an event is crucial.
For sure. Yeah, I think we totally agree. So that's great. I appreciate that insight, because those are all things that we want to focus on. So that's good. I appreciate that. And do you think, as far as like developing ridership in our area for like an ISDE program, or just in general international showings for our athletes, do you think it's tied to the same sort of issues as far as funding and whatnot? Or, is it series? Is it, where we have to race? Is it all kind of the same things? Or
I think in a lot of ways, yes. Like I think it would be really cool for us to have like an ISD qualifier or something like that, to be here. And I think too, I don't know, everyone's got different opinions, but I think having the problem with Alberta is we're so small and there's only so many
yeah,
weekends in a year. However many race series there are, and trying to fight over weekends. I think trying to have something where you can have one really solid series of some kind of degree. I don't know how it would work out or what, because there are different disciplines and I understand that. But people need to understand that racing with faster people makes you faster. And if everyone is spread across and you're showing up to a race and there's only 3 people in a class, I mean, those racers are never going to advance either.
right.
So I would love to see something where we can really get, like, how come when Elias comes here, there's hundreds and hundreds of racers, and then for a local race, there's a handful. So
Yeah.
what's the difference between those two events? I mean, yes, terrain and getting to ride. And I mean, you put Red Bull's name behind everything. Yes, I understand.
Yeah, I was going to say
But
branding's big.
but what
Hey,
I mean
we'll
is,
bring free energy drinks if that's what it takes.
right, there we go. But I just really love to see more racers get out to one series and have one really strong series where there's powers in numbers, right? Everyone
Yeah.
bitches about not having enough, like, prize money or whatever that is. Well, you're not going to get like money from sponsors if there's only a handful of people showing up to an event.
Yeah.
Which is why when you look at like Red Bull Outliers, they're getting hundreds of riders there. The funding comes with it. Because I sit on both sides, right? Working in a dealer, we have people that come in all the time looking for sponsorship and those kinds of things. And as a dealer, as a motorcycle dealer, we want to be able to get our name out and for lots of people to see. And if we can get our logos in front of more places, then there's more value there, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera. The ball just keeps rolling. So it goes on a little bit beyond that, but there's so many levels to it. It's kind of a lot to get into.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we could probably, maybe we should have a roundtable separate from this episode on, sponsorship and, athlete responsibilities, but also dealership responsibilities, and what they want to see. It would be actually a really interesting roundtable on,
Yeah.
because you and I both work at dealerships, and we see that side of things, but we're both also racers who see both sides. So there's probably something we could come up with that's helpful to the world of Alberta.
I
Yeah,
honestly think
and
that's such a good idea. Like, just and just the way like the world is changing so much too, and I think that's a great idea. We should definitely loop back on this.
That's
well,
great.
something like that, and like, yeah, combining like an athlete development. Like, how do you go as a kid who's, we've got so many fast kids in Alberta and Canada and North America. How do you turn those kids into the next generation of successful international racers? Like, what is that athlete development model and
Yeah,
career progression look like in terms of like that roundtable and industry versus promoters versus athletes and parents?
yeah,
Absolutely.
Anyway, and then we
that's
can have, I still have the dream of a North American enduro series.
That'd be so
that would be
cool.
rad too. And you got to dream big. We can make it happen.
I'm crossing all my fingers. I think I can.
I love it.
um, cool. Lexi, any advice you would give, speaking of that kind of stuff, just really quickly, and just in the knowledge, we do have so many fast kids coming out, like I said, Alberta, Canada, North America. What advice would you give to the kids coming out today and looking at, off-road enduro style versus motocross racing, things like that?
Like as far as racing goes?
Yeah, how
Just in
would
general.
what advice would you give to somebody who wants to progress into a career, maybe into the pro ranks?
Have fun. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. And if you're not having fun, you're not going to stay in the sport. That's
Yeah.
just my opinion of it. I think ride your bike. Ride your bike as much as you can all the time. Try different things. Don't be afraid to push yourself and get out of your comfort zone a little bit. Obviously, some of that comes from my background of just trying lots of different things, like I had mentioned before. But I really do think it's important to just be the yes man in a lot of ways. Say yes to going on another adventure and riding in a different place that you've never been before. Because when you go to an international event like a 6 days and you come across something, you can be like, hey, I know it's similar to the XYZ experience. But at the end of the day, take in all the little things along the way. I haven't made career is a loose term in my life because I still work a full-time job and no one's paying me to ride bikes. But I get to go to a lot of races and have a lot of fun doing it. And it's a lot about just the people that I get to enjoy it with and the people that I get to meet along the way. So for me, it's a little bit different. I'm definitely not the person to ask on how to go make a salary and do all of those things. But I do love bikes. I do love the people that come with riding bikes and going on adventures.
Amazing. Lexi, where can people find you and follow you on the socials and that kind of thing?
Geez, I'm not very good at those things. You can follow me on Instagram, Lexi Pechout, LexiPechout. You can listen to our podcast where we have lots of fun and laugh a lot. Bikes, Burns, and Brews, where we get your podcast from. And you can find me at my 9 to 5 at BFD Moto. If you need parts or bikes, give me a call.
BFD Moto in Calgary, Alberta.
Unless they're KTM, call me. Don't call Lexi.
for all your Husqvarna and gas. Everything else
We're friends,
Jared.
but
yeah,
we're friends or still competitors. You know what I'm saying?
Amazing. Lexi Pechout, thank you so much. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and it's great to finally get you behind the mic.
Thank you so much for having me, you guys.
Right on. Hey, thanks, and we'll be in touch. All right.